I'm talking today to Kristine Pearson, who is the CEO of Lifeline Energy, who are the producers of the Lifeplayer. Kristine, what's the Lifeplayer?
The Lifeplayer MP3 is a media player, 5-band radio, and recorder that's solar paneled and wind up, and it was created for education and informational programs and projects in developing countries.
And so what's the capability of the device?
It's got a fantastic capability through a micro SD card that can be embedded in the back, and it also has a slot in the front. It can hold 64 gigabytes of audio content, which is huge. It also has a 5-band radio, and it has the ability to record live voice as well as radio broadcasts.
So what context would it be used in?
It can be used in any educational context. For, let's just take something like English instruction. We're working with the British Council on a multi-country English project for English instruction for both teachers, for teacher training and learners. So if I turn it on, it gives me the option of going down a 5-band radio track or an MP3, and it's working off a hard drive, an embedded hard drive.
Okay, so let's hear one of those MP3 tracks.
Okay. So here I've got, it's going into files and folders.
Hands up who knows another of the 7 life processes. Simi?
Breathing.
Breathing. Yes, even plants can breathe.
Now if you want to stop it,
Yeah.
you can stop it,
Yeah.
pause, discuss, repeat as often as necessary, which is very helpful from a teacher's point of
Yeah.
view and ensures that every student has the opportunity to catch what's being discussed.
And how
Do
many?
that in
Turn it
scientific
back on.
language.
Respiration.
Yes, good.
So how many hours playing time is there on the device?
Oh gosh, it's hours and hours. It depends. Of course, it's solar powered, and
Yeah.
so the amount.
Just show us the solar panel on the back.
Okay. So on the back, it has a detachable solar panel. It has rechargeables in it, so you can recharge the panel by putting it on in the sun. It also has rechargeables in the device, so you get a double source of power. It also has a backup wind-up crank.
Yeah.
It has an indicator light to make sure that you're turning it sufficiently, but really the main source is solar. Of course, the louder you play it, the more it draws, but
Yeah.
it can play for many, many hours. You recharge it, and what really is so great about it is the volume and amount of content. It's up to 64 gigabytes, which is literally years of content.
And where is it currently being used?
It's being used in several sub-Saharan African countries, South Sudan, Congo, Tanzania. It's going to be introduced into Rwanda, Ethiopia, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria,
You
West
mentioned
Africa.
English language teaching. What other kind of learning context is it used in?
Primary education. It's being used, for example, in a distance education program in Zambia. Zambia has hundreds of thousands of students who are unable to attend primary schools. It's a big country. It's very vast.
Yeah.
And there are hundreds of community schools, so children can attend when it's convenient for them. And we're going to be loading grades 1 to 7 and possibly early childhood development onto the Lifeplayer. And then children, there's a shortage of trained teachers, so there are community mentors who are literate in English who are trained to use the Lifeplayer as a teaching tool. And we know from studies in Zambia that children that go through the radio program tend to score 10 to 15% higher
Yeah.
than normal government schools. So we think that we'll be able to really see an increase with the Lifeplayer. It has onboard monitoring software as well, so you can see exactly how the device is being used. You can take a baseline study to see what grades are in the beginning and then track that over time to see which classes, which schools tend to be scoring higher, and is it because they're listening to the program correctly, or are other things being listened to? It also has the ability to record live radio broadcast, which is very important for health programs or agricultural programs, so communities can come and listen also when it's convenient.
For things like farm radio.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how many units are out there at the moment?
Around 20,000. Now bear in mind we just launched this last year, but we see that this is going to be huge potential.
And what's the ambition in terms of how many units you'd like to get out into the rural areas?
Given the need
Yeah.
of education across the developing world, although we principally work in sub-Saharan Africa, we think the market is hundreds of thousands of units.
And what is the unit cost approximately for this?
Well, it has a base price of around $75 or $80.
Yeah.
We've made it a bespoke product. In other words, it depends on the amount of memory, the level of customization. We can create written materials, posters, customize the boxes, whatever a particular project needs. And that might sound like a high upfront cost, but when you amortize that over a minimum of 40 learners and sometimes up to 200 per person, it's a very, very effective educational tool.
And you were telling me earlier that you have plans to include video in the next generation.
Yes, our vision is our next generation of product will have the video capability. We think that'll be very exciting, especially for health workers who can see how to set an arm or pull a tooth. But there are many, many applications in agriculture, in how to set up a business, in finance, mathematics, science, many. The applications of the product are virtually limitless, and it's agnostic content.
How has the distribution and creation of the Lifeplayer been financed?
Well, it's been independently financed by one of our ambassadors and his friends, and then it's now through sales of the devices.
That's through Tom Hanks.
Yes, Tom and his friends were original.
Yeah.
Tom's our ambassador.
Yeah.
That's him, and he and his friends provided the development seed capital to get the Lifeplayer off the ground, and we've also established our own for-profit trading company called Lifeline Technologies. It actually manufactures the products on our behalf, and it is created also to provide an income stream for the charity. So the profits of the sales of the products revert to the charity, enabling us to work with our most vulnerable, to work with our beneficiary groups, which are the most vulnerable: children, women, and refugees in Africa.
And you were saying that you wanted to create an open repository of radio education content, effectively.
Yes, surprisingly, a lot of radio content isn't freely available, but we'd like to create a repository of content on all kinds of subjects, from language instruction, plant, agricultural, democracy training, can be how to set up a business, finance, what is credit, you name it. Nutrition, very, very important topic, maternal care, health, hygiene, HIV and AIDS. So a lot of radio content available. It's been broadcast. Where is it now? We'd love to have a repository. Then we can offer to different projects. Well, if you're going to put on primary school instruction, why not have a track and a program for mothers on nutrition, family, hygiene, healthcare, whatever it might be, farming, various diseases. It's really the sky's the limit.
Who is responsible in rural households for looking after things that have to do with energy?
Well, my experience has been, and I've worked quite widely across sub-Saharan Africa, that fuels are quite gender-based. So men tend to be the ones who control household security, so they buy batteries for torches, as well as household information, and information is often considered as power. So they're the ones that if there are radios, that men buy the radios and batteries to power them. Women, on the other hand, are responsible for cooking. So if they're in a rural area, they're walking long distances to collect firewood. They are also the principal consumers of charcoal and the principal consumers of kerosene or paraffin for household lighting and cooking, as well as candles where they are used. Candles aren't widely available in rural areas. It's very hot in many places of Africa and they melt very quickly. But I've seen a very clear distinction of a gender bias around fuels, and it would also apply to cell phones. I think there are a lot of people that will say cell phones are absolutely everywhere across Africa. They've made incredible inroads, there's no question about that. Very valuable technology. The women I've seen and work with tend to have old model phones that don't hold a charge very long. They tend to have bootleg batteries in them that also don't hold a charge very long. And so there's a lot of time poverty for them walking long distances to get their phones charged, which don't hold the charge for very long. And they also oftentimes are responsible for charging their husband's phones.
And how will this gender inflection affect the distribution and use of the Lifeplayer, which you've just shown us?
Well, these are principally distributed to classroom environments. The majority of teachers in Africa, I would say, from my own experience, are men, especially in rural areas. When we have distributed radios to communities or to schools in the past, we've always tried to work with and through women, because we find they're very, very responsible and tend more to use the product in a community context. Most of the teachers are men. We'll work with whoever is the responsible headmaster, headmistress, or teachers of schools, but we want everybody to be trained, and there's a distribution process that takes place to ensure that it's correctly used and equitably used.
Kristine, thanks for talking to me today.